Welcome to 10 Degrees Warmer. I'm Rob.
And I'm David.
And today we are going to tell you about Australia. We spent about a little over 2 weeks in Australia. We've talked about Sydney in previous videos. Today we're going to talk about what happened when we left Sydney up until the time we left Melbourne. We did some interesting things in between, but it was all very fast and rapid. So we're going to give you some recommendations and tell you what we did, why we were there. So stick around and we're going to get right to it. We're David and Rob, and we are taking what we are hoping will be a 4-year sabbatical to travel the world. We've lived in and traveled to over 75 countries and territories over the past 30 years, and we are here to share our unconventional life of long-term travel to give you an example of what is possible. So first of all, we already are in our next destination, which is in Bali. So forgive us, we do have a very noisy rooster who lives next door, and you're probably going to hear him during the course of this video. That's just sort of the charm of Indonesia. But we wanted to talk about how we decided to get from Sydney to Melbourne. If you want to just fly, it's very easy. We were finding flights. I didn't do it with bags, but like the tickets themselves were like $50. Really inexpensive if you just want to fly to Melbourne and get there and do your thing. We kind of wanted to see a little bit more of the country, so we decided to take the train, and we made 2 stops on our way to Melbourne. We stopped in Canberra and then again in a town called Albury. So the train itself ended up being a little more expensive than if we had just flown to Melbourne, but for us it was worth it. So the separate legs, the pricing was a little bit different, but it was about $50, $55 for both of us for each segment of the train. So we spent a little over 150 US for the both of us to get all the way there. But the train is very comfortable. It was very easy. We didn't really have any issues with it.
No, and you could see so much of the countryside, which is what we really love.
We did see some kangaroos at one point hopping out in the distance, which was pretty cool. So very comfortable. The seats were fine. I mean, it was never more than a couple of hours at a time.
No,
I think
and you're given a reserved seat. Yeah. Everyone is.
So unlike the trains in Sydney, where it's just a commuter train and you get on and take whatever seat is available, these trains you do have to book ahead of time. They came around and they knew our names and what seats we were supposed to be in, and there was like a conductor who checked everybody's ticket. So you can't buy them on the train, you have to book them ahead of time.
Yeah, and there's a eating car on the train also. So if you get hungry along the way, there's a place to eat and bathrooms and luggage racks and everything. So it's very easy and comfortable.
They did talk to us about, or in the emails and stuff, about being able to check bags to go through, but only certain stations check bags. And when we started in Sydney, I mean, it was the first stop, and we asked someone about it because we had our backpacks with us, and they were like, just carry them on. And once you get on the train, there is just a big luggage rack. In Sydney, it was very easy because we were some of the first people on, because of course we were there early, so we just put them in there. Later, when we got on in Albury, where we were getting on it was a very early morning flight, 4 a.m., so people had been coming from Sydney. We did have to kind of move things around to get our bags there, but still there's also places over your seats you can put bags, so it didn't seem to be much of an issue.
Yeah, and one part of the journey when we left Canberra and we went to Albury, we actually did have to take a bus to get to the train, because the same train that goes down to Albury does not pass through Canberra.
Yeah, you have to take a look at the routes and how they work, but it was, pretty easy to figure out and wasn't a hassle. Our
first stop along the way was Canberra, the capital of the country of Australia. And we're going to give you 3 tips of things you can do while you're there. Since it is the capital, we walked around, we saw the Parliament building and some of the other government buildings. But that wasn't really our focus while we were there.
Although we did see a lot of great birds just kind of walking around.
That was
The
really
galahs
nice
are
too.
really cool. They're these like pink parrots. They were really awesome.
The galahs, yes. So we'll talk about the parks we went to. We went to the Jerrabomberra wetlands, which are a huge wetlands kind of in the eastern part of the city. And there were lots of people there just walking and jogging, and it was a very active area, but also gorgeous for the wetlands and the birds that are there. And we got to see kangaroos up close, and that was probably the highlight of that day.
It was kind of scary too, because I mean, you've seen all the videos of like kangaroos beating people up. And we saw in the distance first, we saw a mother and a little Joey, a baby. And
Super cute.
We were watching them. Then the dad came out, and that dad was like massive and just rippling muscles. I was like, I do not want that kangaroo to get ticked off of me because I'm looking at his kids.
No.
So.
Get his wallet and his keys, and he's fine.
I mean, and in the long run, he ran away. He didn't want anything to do with us, so it was fine. But
Yeah. I don't think we were in any danger at all, but it was
Not really.
one of those things you think about when you're in the middle of nowhere, no one around, and you've got this very large kangaroo looking at you. Yeah.
the other park we went to were the National Botanic Gardens, and they are over near, there's a university there, and they're just on the other side of that, and it is a beautiful, beautiful grounds. It's all eucalyptus forest there. But they've also brought in a lot of, more rainforest type plants
Yeah,
there.
there was like a whole gully that you
with
could
the
walk
fern
through.
gully, and
yeah.
it's rich and deep and dark and tons of plants. And there's also there, we didn't see kangaroos, but there were big lizards and some more birds, and it was just a great walk. If you want to go somewhere for a nice walk and it's all free.
And it was
Go
a
there.
nice day too. We found like they've got big lawns. We like parked ourselves under a tree and I took a nap in the grass. Like it was nice.
It was nice.
Yeah.
And the third thing we
The third thing we did was the National Gallery of Australia. It's a terrific museum if you get a chance to go there. And again, highly recommend taking the docent tour. We got there a little bit before the tour was going to start, so we just started kind of walking around on our own. And then we came back and took the tour, and she walked us by some of the things we had kind of looked at. And you just get so much more background and history. There was this one, it was like a massive wax figure of a person that the head had fallen off of it and was laying on the ground. And it was just like, okay, that's weird, but okay. And then when she came around, she's like, well, look really close at the top and you'll see it's a candle and it's on fire right now. And it was melting and the head had, fallen off, but like the rest of it. And there's a whole story behind it about why the artist does this and, makes it so much more interesting. Take the docent tour. It was just us and one other woman. And it was very, very interesting.
Yes.
So highly recommended. All right, our next stop was in Albury, which is a town I had never heard of before, but we found it on the train and it was a good stop for us. And we just were there, I think, 2 days, so it was very quick, but we did a couple of interesting things. One of the things, do you want to talk about the Riverwalk?
Oh, yeah, there's this great walk if you go down to the river, which is the Murray River, and it's the border between the states of Victoria and New South Wales. And the river is beautiful, very lush. There were some bats along the way in a little bat colony that we came across.
Fruit bats?
But if you keep walking along the river away from town, you'll get to a place called the Yiti Yamara Sculpture Walk. And that walk has indigenous sculptures placed along the walkway that goes for a good mile or so, wrapping around a few different lakes. And those lakes are full of birds, and it's just a beautiful place to go. A bit cold the morning we went.
They were having a little cold snap while we were there. It was not very spring weather, but we did get to see some snakes.
Oh my gosh,
Just
yeah.
walking down, and there's this big black snake, and of course we're like, Australia, that snake's gonna kill us. But we looked it up afterwards, and it
was a
probably
red-bellied
would
black
not
snake,
have
and
killed us.
it's poisonous or venomous, but it not very aggressive, not much of a danger.
No.
But it was pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll put some video up because it was very hungry. It was looking for something to eat.
Oh yeah, it was hungry.
But was not very interested in us. We did go to a museum there. What was it called? The Murray Art Museum in
Mama.
Albury. Yeah. Here's where we did not take our own advice. I don't think they had tours. This is a small regional museum.
Very tiny.
So we just kind of walked around on our own. So it's interesting. I was glad that we went.
No, but our time in
Yeah.
Albury was good.
Yeah.
And our last city in Australia was Melbourne, and we were really glad we went there. It's a beautiful city. It has a very different vibe than Sydney does, for sure. And it's just a nice area to wander around and check out people. And
Yeah. That was
Very
probably
nice.
our best stop for Christmas decorations.
yeah,
Because they were pretty well done up. It was kind of nice. Okay, one thing that we did that I was very
Yeah.
excited about, because at the museum in Canberra, they had a whole exhibit on Ned Kelly, who is a famous, what are they called, bushranger,
Yeah,
outlaw of Australia back in the late 1800s. And he and his gang built like metal armor so that they could go into shootouts with police. And so they had this famous armor, and there's a very big story behind him and his life and that story. But after we had seen some of the art, like we were like, what happened to the armor? And so when we got to Melbourne, the library, was it the Victoria Library there, actually has his armor. And so we got to go there and see it, and it's got bullet holes or dents in
Dents
it.
in it.
Eventually they got him by shooting his legs, which were not covered by the armor, and then they hanged him. But it was great to see that. It was just kind of putting that bow on the story that started at the museum in Canberra. So that was very interesting, definitely recommended.
yes. Another thing we did is we went to see some theater.
Yes, there was a lot of theater going on in
A
Melbourne.
lot of theater. There was,
Yeah.
we probably passed about
3 or 4,
4 or 5 big shows.
big
yeah.
theaters. But we went and saw Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Which we're fans of the Harry Potter. So
Yeah, it was very fun. We've heard about it for so long, but we'd never seen it. For those of you who have seen it, I know when it opened, initially it was a 2-performance production, and they have now in many cities kind of crunched it all together and just made it one. It was like 3.5 hours.
3.5 hour
But
show.
it's just, you see the whole thing in one night. So that's the production that's
Yeah.
in Melbourne.
a lot of great stage effects. It was really fun to see.
Yeah, they made a big deal about not telling the secrets, so I won't tell any secrets. But I will say that the actress who played Moaning Myrtle, hands down, stole the show for me. Like, one scene, but she was terrific. So funny.
Terrific.
She was definitely a crowd pleaser.
And then the last thing we did, which is something we do pretty much everywhere we go, is we went to the Botanic Garden.
Yes.
No surprise. And again, another beautiful Botanic Garden, huge, lots of lakes, lots of walking, and anything more to say about that one? It was beautiful.
Yeah, no,
but-
we had a really good walk there,
Yeah.
and we did see our last life bird, which was
For
a
the country.
yellow-tailed black cockatoo, which we had been trying to see everywhere we went.
for 2 weeks.
Finally, as we were leaving, it flew overhead and made a lot of noise, and so we got a really good look at it. It was really cool.
Yeah. So that was our trip to Australia, 2 weeks from Sydney down to Melbourne, and it was a fantastic trip.
Definitely recommend going. I mean, there's so much to do in Australia. We only had our 2 weeks, so we crammed it full, and
So
we
much
did a lot.
we missed. So
But,
much we missed.
Yeah, there's so much more to go back to go to Tasmania or Perth or the Outback or
Great
the Great Barrier
Barrier,
Reef.
yeah.
Yeah, there's like unending things to do there. But for what little time we had,
It was
we
fantastic.
did a good job. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel, and we will be back soon to tell you more about getting to, drumroll, Indonesia. We went to Bali, And we've got our rooster, who's actually, I think, pretty quiet while we've been filming
didn't
this.
notice the
He's
press.
been really noisy all day.
We've
but
gotten used to him.
apparently, the rooster respects the YouTube and took a vow of silence while we shot our video. But thanks for being along with us, and we will see you next time. Okay, I'm nervous because this is off.
What the hell? Has that been off the whole time?
I don't know.
I don't remember seeing little green lines ever. Oh, God.
So,
Um.
I don't know what else to say about that.
It all, make a cut here. Da 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 da. 10 degrees warmer.
Do